Good morning. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this crowd workshop. So I decided to prepare this workshop shortly after Side Effects won their Emmy for the crowd toolset in Houdini, and this is a three-part workshop. So we'll start with a first part about rigging and animation. Then at 10 we'll talk about agents and simulation, and we'll finish with some shading and rendering. So I'm LP, Louis Philippe. I come from Montreal, and I work there as a CG supervisor at a company called Folks VFX. Also teach at NAD School, University in Montreal. And this is more or less the kind of class that I would give to my students. So it's more a introduction to the crowd toolset. And my experience is more in smaller companies, smaller studios, so it's a generalist approach to this tool set, or at least a small team of versatile artists that could find all of this useful. So we won't go too much in depth into all of this, but it's I hope you'll get all the key concepts so you will be able to start and work on some crowd shots. All right, so let's dive in. So it will be a live demo of everything. And this is recorded, and we'll make the HIP files available, so you'll be able to look at the files and see how it was made. So maybe just I'll start with a quick result of what we'll be doing. So the intent here was to make some flying agents, and I decided to do some crowds or some bats flying inside a cave. So this was all done in Houdini and rendered in Mantra. Looks pretty dark, eh? But yeah, the idea was to make some flying agents, and starting from a simple asset, we'll see how to rig it first, and how to wrap into a digital asset, and then do some keyframe animation on it. So let's dive right in. So this is the asset that I was provided. So a couple of friends of mine helped me with the asset. And like I said, this is more a generalist approach. So let's pretend we don't have really a pipeline that gave us the asset. So I was given this half model because it was UV'd on one side and then mirrored. So I'll just start by mirroring the asset and make sure to have the asset at the center of the world and the right size, because when you'll start rigging, you want it to already be at the right proportions. So now that it's mirrored like this, what I'll do is spacebar and 3 and see the front-facing camera, and we can see that the model is not aligned properly. So it's important for the crowd solver later on that the asset is oriented properly. So what I'll do here, just translate or rotate the asset here, and I want it also to be the right size. So right now it's a pretty large bat. So let's remember that in Houdini, 1 unit is usually 1 meter. So we probably have a like 10-ish wide bat here, which is kind of large. I don't wish to meet this bat, eh? So let's use the match size node. So it's a sub that I really like because it'll let you use whatever bounding box and make your asset fit into this bounding box. So match size here, whatever I'm doing. It's not working, great. And on the left side, let's wire our asset, and on the right side, I'll create a box. And I search on the internet, and I think that this kind of vampire bat is about 40 centimeter wide, so the wingspan should be 40 centimeter. So I'll change this box here to a 40 centimeters, so 0.4 like this. And it's not important to scale it on the 3-axis, since in the match size node here, I can scale to fit. So right now it's a squishy bat, eh? But just check uniform scale here, and it matches the width by default. So you can decide here if you prefer best fit, X, Y, and Z. So whatever works for you. Here I'll finish it with a null node. It's always important to keep things clean. And I'll call it out modeling, and we'll see later on, because I'll add some other operators after this when we'll start scanning the geometry. So here, our bat aligned properly, right size. So we're good to go and start rigging the thing. So if we take a look at the shelf tools up there, we can see that we have this shelf, the shelf containing all the tools. And we'll start with the very first one here, bones. And we'll draw the bones. So what I'll do is a simple rig. I'll start with a bone for the body, then 3 bones for each wings. And then that'll be pretty much it. But the complexity scales really well here, depending on your model. So I'll jump to the top view here, so spacebar and 2. And when you select the bone tool, the default behavior is this view-based placement. So what it'll do is, based on your camera angle, it'll like project the bone inside the geometry. So it'll try to find the center or middle point between the in and or top and bottom geometry. So if I lay down a first bone here, I'll do the whole wing like this. And then when I'm done drawing, I can press Escape on the keyboard. Now I got my 3 bones like this. Switch back to the shaded view and spacebar 1 for the perspective view. So what I was saying, the free-form placement, it like placed this root here at the center of the volume. So it's good if you want to place a bone in an arm or something like this, or within the body like this. If you want other ways of placing the bone, you can use the freehand or normal base. So depending on your use case, you might want to change this. But for us, this here works fine. So 3 bones, not bad. But what I like to do is adding some controllers. So we'll add nulls, so we'll be able to control these bones. And it's important for these nulls to be aligned with the bones. So we get the correct transformation. So just laying down a null like this, well, first it's quite large because our bat is pretty small. So I wouldn't suggest changing here the uniform scale of the null. If I want it to be smaller, I'll just change the display size here to something like 0.1. Let's say that's good. And if I want to align my node here or my null to the bone, the quickest way would be to just wire it after the bone. So like this, we can see that it's aligned with my bone, but I got a problem here because if I want to have this FK chain there, ideally this null would be just over the bone in this architecture, right? But if I shake it off like this and place it here, well, it's placed at the right place, right? But we don't get the alignment. It's not rotated properly. So what I would do is like what I call the null trick, because it's some steps, but by wiring the null after the bone, and then just making sure that in the transform tab here, we check keep position when parenting. When I disconnect this wire here, it keeps the position, and then I could slide it in here. Just make sure that these bones here also have this keep position when parenting, because if they don't have it, I would wire it, and then the transformation would add up. So that's not really what we want, so let's just make sure to remove it from the chain, and we'll check key position when parenting for all these bones, and now I can wire it back in and we're good. So I got the right alignment, it's placed properly, and we'll do the same trick for the 2 other bones. So I'll do it slightly faster here. Whoop. So I'll wire this one to the 2nd bone and this one to the 3rd bone. I'll make sure that they are both keeping their position when parenting. Y on the keyboard lets me cut all the wires like this, and I'm just checking if they are checked here, and it's just a matter of sliding them in. Great. So again, we have huge nulls like this, and I'll change the display size. And since I know I'll be rotating these, I like to change the control type here. So by default, it's set to null, but if you set it to circle, I don't know, it just makes more sense to change these nulls to circles if I know that I'll be just rotating them. So our first first chain here. And if we just select all these nulls and rotate them, so R on the keyboard, I know I'll get a decent flapping motion from this chain here. So what I'll want to do now is duplicate or copy this whole chain and make sure I can have the same structure but on the other side. So what I would do here is create a null at the very center of the world and wire the whole thing, or I'll copy and paste it, wire the whole thing here to this null, and I'll just scale it to -1. So now I flipped the whole thing, but for some of you it might be weird because we get all of these weird transformation. If we take a look, we get all of these weird transformation because of the scaling, right? But it's fine for now. Let's just handle this later. But now we got these two wings, or these two chains, and I said earlier that I also wanted a bone for the body, so I should have maybe started with this, but I'll go back to this top view, so spacebar and 2, like this, and I'd like to place a bone right there. So I could maybe do some snapping on the points, but if I snap on the points, my bone will really lay on top of the geometry. That's maybe not what I want. If I want it to be at the ground level, at the origin like this, what I could do is here right-click on the multi-snapping option. So what I want to do is snap my bones to the edge of the grid. So here I've already set it up, but by default I think it's set to geo point, something like this. And here what I want is to snap it to the grid edge. So now just make sure to have this multi-snapping option checked, and you can also access the snapping options by pressing X on the keyboard and then selecting one of these. So if it's already selected and you select it, so just releasing the X key on the keyboard should enable or disable it. And here I'm going to draw it across the whole body. And like I said earlier, this should keep our bone level to the ground plane, but it didn't snap on the geometry, so it might be something interesting to do. So here I guess that we have pretty much all we need regarding let's say the bone structure. For what we want to do, we could have placed other bones for for the legs or for these parts here on the wing. But I think that for a crowd shot, depending on the distance and the animation that you want to include, this is what we need for now. All right, so I'll add a null as well for the body. So I'll just place it here and change its control type to box. So this is just personal preferences, but I don't know, it just makes sense to me. And I'll add another null at the very top as a global SRT or a master node here. And this one, I'll keep it rather large, but I change it to circles. And with circles here, we can select the orientation. So here, the Z and X plane should give me this master controller that lays down on the ground plane. Great. So we still have our bat geometry here on the side. And I've placed nodes everywhere, and I haven't renamed anything or colored anything. So it might be a good idea to keep track of what is what. So maybe just coloring the roots here, like this. Color it in the node graph here, but I also will remove them from. Oh, that was not the null I was looking for. This here is the root. Yeah. So see, the roots are these little spheres at the root of the bones, but I don't really need to see them. So usually I would uncheck here the display flag, and these two roots needs also to be wired to the main body chain here. So again, just make sure to have this key position when parenting, and these two we can wire them to the main chain here, and I should be able to either select the main null here, so the global, I'll call it the SRT. This one should move everything else. Maybe just disabling the multi-snap will help. So here, you can see that it's coming with the whole chain. This controller here is the body, so it shouldn't move the SRD. And if I select any of these rotation controller, they're working as intended. Good, so far so good. So like I said, it might be a good idea to rename everything and make sure that it's colored properly, but I got this here, which is already done. Great. You don't have to look at me renaming nulls for 5 minutes. So it's more or less the same thing that we had just before. I might just want to hide these guys here, but it's pretty much the same thing. Different colors, but pretty much the same thing. So what we want to do now is capture the geometry. So bind the geometry to these bones. And again, if we take a look at the shelf tools here, we got this capture geometry. So let's just press here, and there's a picking session. So first select the geometry to capture. So this is the skin of our character. Press enter, and then select the root object. So here, the root object will be this body root. Press enter, and it should compute for a couple of seconds. So what it does here, it's creating new SOPs inside the geometry node that we created earlier. Yes, great. So here we can see the capture regions or the capture geometry. So it's kind of messy. I mean, we got these hard transitions between colors. So there are plenty of tools here. So we could change the capture region or edit the capture weight. But I know by experience here that I got a problem with my asset being too small or it's too thin. You know, these wings here, they're really thin. So if we take a look at what happened here in this geo node, is that a first node was created to import these lines. So the lines are the actual bones. And it created this kind of wrap or a geometry on top of all our original geometry. But the problem here is that all my wings disappeared because it's as we see, it's a digital asset. So we could dive in and check what are all the steps here. But I imagine that it does, VDB at some point, and since my wings are too thin, it's missing information. So there's a great thing here, which is called enlarge input mesh. So basically, it'll scale the mesh. So when doing the VDB operation, it should wrap everything together. By default, it has a value of 4, and for our case here, it works perfectly. So now we got this chubby bat, but it's enveloping our original geometry. And if we take a look at this node here, and if we come in the viewport, press enter, we should see now it's a better weight, or it's better capture. Now everything is smoothed out, and it's just a matter here to stash the input again. And if you want to see the deformed geometry at the end, just make sure to display this last node here. I like to add a null node here and call it maybe out deforming geo. Great. So back up here, and we'll select these controllers and see. Great. No. So we got our deforming geometry. It's smooth. It's great. This is what we'll need for our crowd setup. But again, if you're rigging and you've got problems with the capture regions and everything, just use these tools here, and they should be helpful to adjust the binding. Great, so let's put it back down here, and we'll make this a digital asset. Because what we want to do is pretty much save this rig and share it with other people and have a versioning of these. So if you need to do some some retakes on the rig or anything, you need the rig to be shareable. So the Houdini digital asset is a great format to share all of this. So what we'll do is select all our nodes here and create a subnetwork from our selection. So here it's all in this box there. And the idea is to save this as an HDA and then to promote every parameters that we want to keyframe later on. So what we'll need is probably the rotation of all of these nulls here, and maybe the global transformation of the body controller and the SRT. So just back inside here, what we want to do is connect our SRT to this subnetwork input 1, because if by any chance we need to apply a constraint on this character, let's say we want this character to fly on a path, or for whatever reason we need to wire it to something else. If I create a null here and move this guy like this, then the whole rig is not moving because it's wired into the input 1, and then the input 1 is wired nowhere, right? And wiring it here, now we can have a controller outside, outside of the, yes, great. Works perfectly, outside of the actual rig. So let's just save this guy here. So what we'll do is right-click on the subnetwork and create a digital asset. Here it's a matter of saving it somewhere that makes sense to you. Here I'll save it to the HIP folder, and then inside a subfolder, maybe call it HDA or rig or something like this. Here I could call it rig, and then I'll call it rig, and maybe call it bat rig. And if you have ever seen how to version assets with an HDA, you can call it, let's say, bat rig like this, and add a version number. So I think it's within the operator name. It's 2 times the 2 dots like this, and you can version it with a version number. So just don't use any letters. So either 1 or 1.0, 1.1.1, depending on whatever naming convention you want. But if you increment after that, Houdini should be able to, when you call this the HD, to fetch the latest version. So here I'll just get this version 1 and accept. Here I need to set up what the number of inputs that I need. So minimum inputs, I'll set it to 0, because if I set it to 1, it'll require something to be wired upstream, but we don't necessarily need to wire it. So just set a minimum input to 0, maximum to 1, and I'll save it like this for now. And when we're here, it's now an HDA. So if I right-click, match current definition, it's locked. Now it's the whole thing is contained within our HDA. But what we need to do is promote some parameters, because if now I select one of these controller and I want to rotate it, I can't. It's locked inside the HDA. It's not really what we want. So by allowing editing of content, what I'll do is I'll create a custom UI here. And it's important not to do what we're used to do. So what many people would do here is click on the cogwheel here and edit parameter interface and start playing here. But since now it's an HDA, it's better to come to this menu here up and select edit asset properties and select this bat rig. So now it's not only changing the UI of this node inside this session, but it's editing the whole HDA, and when you'll save it, it'll carry on all the instances of this asset. So what I like to do here is create a new folder that I'll put up here. So it's the first thing that will show on the right when we'll create the asset. Maybe call it just rig. and apply. So see here, I got a new tab, and now it's the long and tedious part of fetching everything that we need. So let's see. I'll get this back, and from nodes here, I can fetch whatever I need. So I'll fetch, let's say, the body controller transformation. So I'll get translate with rotation and scale. I'll make sure that it's going to this rig subfolder. I'll transfer them to the right side, and when I press apply here, I should see these parameters there. Then I could get, I forgot about the SRT, so maybe I could get the SRT as well. Here, boom, apply. And now it's up to you how you want to customize this. Do you want to create subfolders? If we go back to this type here, so we could go to subfolders and maybe call this SRT. And what I like to do here is, instead of tabs, just use the simple folder type, and it'll just wrap these parameters within this this box. I think it just looks good, but again, it's up to you. And it's just a matter of importing all the parameters that we need. So again, we'll get this digital asset that is already done. And here what I did is I imported all the transformation for the SRT, the body, and just the rotation of the 3 nulls on the wings. And finally, what I added there was these 2 checkbox. So it's a matter of getting these custom checkbox and adding this this line of HGrip. It's just an expression that once the checkbox is checked, it's hiding either the controller or the bones. But like this, we have a decent rig. It's saved, it's shareable, and we'll be able to start the animation for this. So we'll wait for the second part of the workshop for the animation. So we'll do the animation with the agent setup, but that's it for rigging. Just a brief overview on how to rig. And if you have any questions, we'll do a quick Q&A, maybe take 1 or 2 minutes break, let people come and go, and we'll start again in 2 or let's say 5 minutes.
With the skinning, because it's inside, because they're using a VDB, does that mean that the mesh has to be watertight? And if you're dealing with a, you got to rig a cup or whatever,
right?
What would be your recommended workflow? Watertight before and then point, or I don't know, maybe point deforming, or would you, or do they have an option for that for non-watertight mesh?
Right. So if you go inside there, this HDA or within this this node here, there are some parameters, but I guess that it's, even though it's not watertight, it'll do an approximation of what you'll get. But you're right, with VDB, it might be hard to get a precise wrapped or precise envelope. Not really sure about this one.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Is there a button for this? Okay. So the VDB bind seems very similar to geodesic voxel for in Maya. Is it similar, or what are the differences between what Houdini's doing here?
Different than with Maya?
Yeah, but specifically with our geodesic voxel bind method.
Right. Again, not really sure because I'm not a Maya user.
Okay.
So again, sorry about that.
Never mind.
All right. So let's get people come and go if needed, and we'll start in maybe 2 minutes.